Well, here's another recorded Zoom interview, and we have three people on screen. I'm in Ellensburg, Washington, but I'm willing to bet that the person in the upper left is from Seattle. Can you identify yourself, please, Skip? Who are you?
Well, I am Knute Skip Berger. I work at Cascade PBS. I have a show called Mossback's Northwest, which airs across the state. And I'm sort of the resident historian for Cascade PBS.
Well, you're much more than that. You've been writing for a long, long time, and we're all big fans of your work. So it's a thrill to have you here, Skip. And Maggie, are you in Seattle as well?
I'm actually in Tacoma. I am currently sitting as deep into the bowels of the Washington State History Museum as you can get. This is behind the scenes as far as I can take you right now. So welcome to Tacoma in our loan processing room at the Washington State Historical Society.
So that was casual, Maggie. So what is your formal name and your designation there, and what's your organization?
Thank you so much, Nick. Hi, I'm actually Margaret Wetherbee. I go by Maggie, and I am head of collections for the Washington State Historical Society. We run the Washington State History Museum, and everything in this building here where I'm sitting, and also in our original museum building, are all of the artifacts, the archival materials, everything there. I am in charge of stewarding that for the state of Washington and for all of you.
Terrific. Thank you. Do you guys know each other well? Like, Skip, have you been going to Maggie for years, or this is a relatively new collaboration?
Yeah, it's relatively new. It's been more than a year, but I met Maggie when I got interested in photographs of Asel Curtis. I did an episode on Asel Curtis. We also did some podcasts about that. And I found out from Maggie about an incredible project that the State History Museum is engaged in. And so now we're talking all the time, emailing back and forth. Yeah, it's been a really great thing.
Well, that is our topic. Asel Curtis, brother of maybe the more famous photographer in the Pacific Northwest. But it's Asel's time in the limelight or in the spotlight. Maggie, I don't know, who would be more appropriate to ask on the kind of early stages of this Asel Curtis collection? Is it you, Maggie? Were you into this a little bit earlier than Knute?
Well, of course. As the steward of the collection for the state of Washington, it's really my role to look at the collection as a whole and see what we need to do with it. And we were really fortunate to realize what a treasure trove the Asel Curtis collection is. The museum story is that there are 60,000 negatives of glass plates and nitrate negatives that we currently house, and roughly 5,000 had been digitized previously and looked at and gone through. But we realized that there were potentially 55,000 images of Washington during the 1890s to the 1940s that we have not seen, and we wanted to be able to share those with our public. We are excited to be investing in this opportunity for researchers, the public, anyone who will be interested. We're really excited to be able to digitize them and make them available to the public. And so we were embarking on this project when Knute reached out to us, and it just was very fortuitous that we could start working together in this way. And I know a lot of people always ask me, they're like, it is so glamorous that you were working with Knute. I'm like, I know, it's amazing. They were like, what do you do? Like, we look at a computer screen together.
Yeah, there you go.
Because, right, you don't know what's on the image until it's digitized, and so a lot of the work is actually very much back and forth using technology. But we are so lucky to be living in a day and age where we could make these materials available in that format.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Skip. Like, I am a big fan of Asel Curtis kind of by accident. Like, I just love old photos, and whether it's a column by you or some blog post or probably one of those old glossy books from 30 years ago or pamphlets, I'm like, my God, these are amazing photographs. Can you give us a little thumbnail on this guy, Skip? And when did he pass away? And then Maggie, maybe right after that, like when do we think the first batch of the Asahel Curtis photos got to the society? So let's start with the life of Asahel, if you don't mind, Knute.
Yeah, I mean, Asahel and Edward Curtis came out from the Midwest and with their family and were living here. And both ended up pursuing photography. Asahel was the younger brother of Edward. Edward had a photo studio that he set up in Seattle, and Asahel worked with him. And then in the 1890s, 1897, Asahel was sent up to Alaska to join taking pictures of the gold rush. Mm-hmm. And so he began lugging this giant glass plate, large format camera around. And you can imagine what it was like taking that over White Pass or Dead Horse Pass or whatever. And he sent these pictures back to his brother, Edward, who wrote an article in a national magazine about the gold rush and how fabulous it was. And here are all these photos that I took. And that preceded the brothers to have a falling out. There were maybe other reasons, but this was a major reason. Asahel felt his brother was taking credit for his work. He ended up opening his own studio. And so Asahel was active as a photographer in the Northwest from roughly the mid-1890s, and he died in 1940. So Asahel died. The Historical Society got together some money to purchase his entire collection, and it's been at the Historical Society since the 40s.
Since the 40s. Okay, so Maggie, are you the person to thank then for this renewed interest in this collection? Like only a fraction of those photos, you said 5,000, did you say, were digitized to this point? But is it you, or is there somebody else who's the driver that says, look, we've got all these other photos in this collection, let's get cracking?
Well, we're very much a team approach here. And from our director to our director of philanthropy down, we realized what a tremendous opportunity this was to share with our public. And so, again, it's my job to say, hey, we should do this. And I have other people making sure that we can do the work. And we're really supported, and we're really thankful for everyone who has donated to the project so far. And it's been really wonderful to really see these come to light. And really, we're really excited to be able to share them.
I mean, come on, this is exciting. Like if you're gonna share some photos, I think in just a second. And is it safe to say that these photos have not been seen by anybody for like 80 years?
Yes, with the exception of one. There's one particular photo that Knute wanted me to include that we have digitized, but we're going to talk about it for a very specific reason.
I asked Maggie to emphasize photos from Eastern Washington.
Thank you.
These aren't all Eastern Washington, and some of them I think are of particular interest given some of the talks you've given recently about the Missoula floods and other things. And one thing about Asahel Curtis I just want to say is he went everywhere and shot everything.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a studio photographer. He wasn't just a travel photographer or a newspaper photographer or a promotional photographer or an advertising. He was all of those things. And so the collection is about as broad as you can get.
Well, that's one of my favorite things from the few photos that I've seen. Oftentimes it feels like everyday life. And then others feel like the most glossy, like these kinds of photos. I mean, so yes, the range is, I'm no photographer, but it communicates so specifically to me. And I'm guessing there's going to be more of those feelings right now. Okay, nice job, Maggie. We're seeing this nice and big. Maggie, can you get us rolling here with this first image?
I can. This is actually a photo of Asahel Curtis at the top of Mount Baker in the summer of 1906.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to start off with a self-portrait obviously he did not click the shutter for this. I love the fact that you can tell what he is wearing, and it is not hiking gear, right?
I mean, this is great. Top of Mount Baker. Okay.
Yeah, this is all pre-Gore-Tex.
Yeah.
And one of the amazing things to me, these pictures always tell a story. You know, you can go up and take a selfie on top of Mount Rainier, Mount Baker today, but imagine, you know, he's carrying glass plate equipment up there.
Oh my
glass
God.
plate, you know, carrying the camera, carrying the box to hold the plates. You know, this was heavy lifting just to get this shot.
I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised that technology was still the main thing in 1906. Like, I'm a big fan of William Henry Jackson, who was on one of those government surveys, I think the Hayden Party, maybe, like in the Rockies. And that always struck me, but I think that was 1870s, 1880s. So that glass plate thing continued into the first decade of the 20th century, huh, Skip?
Yeah, it continued really up to the 1920s. That's when you see the change to film. And that brings up a point I want to make about the importance of the digitization project. And that is that these glass plate negatives are very delicate. They're impermanent. They're subject to aging. And then when he was using film, most of it's on nitrate. So part of the digitization process is to make sure these images exist beyond the life of the original media.
Yes, I mean, it's amazing they've lasted this long, to be honest, and that's great job by the society. Thank you, and the museum. All right, Maggie, yes, please, let's continue. This is wonderful.
Are you ready for the next image?
I think we are.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, I have to move everybody. Okay. This particular photo, and let me get it big for you all so we can, everyone can see it well. This is actually Lake Chelan, Cougar Mountain.
Oh, really?
Forest fire.
Oh.
And again, I was trying to think of things, Nick, that you would enjoy.
Thank you.
And I'm going to give you the date here. It was in Chelan in 1906. This is another 1906 image that he took.
Well, I'm drawn by the fire, but I'm also, is that glacial ice in the foreground? Like, I don't know that area well enough to know if that's glacial ice. I don't know where that would be. My goodness, amazing.
Sure looks like it.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's a waterfall up there too.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with this place, but you know, one of the great things is people will see this and tell us what's significant about it.
Oh, you've got that right, 100%. Well, that's a great photo. Thank you for selecting this one. What's next?
Well, we're still staying in the Chelan series, and this is a photo of Lakeside. So very early Chelan.
This is the town of Chelan.
Oh, it is.
It is, yeah. Lakeside. This is in October of 1906.
Well, Skip, 1906. How's he getting over to Chelan? Like, he's not driving over there, probably.
No, probably by rail.
Huh.
You know, of course, but the auto question is interesting because Curtis was a huge promoter of the Good Roads movement and a big believer that the state, all of the state, not just Western Washington or Eastern Washington, needed to improve its roads. He and Sam Hill of Maryhill were very close pals and working on advocating for roads. But he did got around, I think, a lot on the railroads. He worked for, photography, railroad photography. So he was all over the place very early.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're so crisp. I mean, this is after the process, Maggie, I assume, to digitize. Is there touching up of these things somehow, or these are like as original as can be?
They're as original as they possibly can be. The only thing I'm not showing you, these are not the TIFF preservation files that we're creating. This is an access copy.
Okay.
So the larger preservation files, you can even see more detail. That's how good of a photographer he was. That has nothing to do with our processes. We are scanning and just really preserving what Asahel Curtis took. He was just a really great photographer, and you can really tell.
Yeah, I was up. Oh,
please.
I was just going to say I was up on the Macaw Reservation a couple weekends ago, and they have a fabulous museum up there. Curtis took some amazing pictures of the macaw whale hunters and other things. And in their museum there, they've taken Curtis images and blown them up, that cover a huge wall, and they're still tack sharp.
And it actually, his collection, right now with only the 5,000 images we have digitized, is the most heavily requested collection that we have for things such as that. It really is. Like, everyone wants to use them for something. And that's why we're just so excited to be able to be preserving them in this way and sharing them in this way.
Is he one of those guys that was not appreciated during his time, and there's kind of this renewed interest in his work? Or did he have an audience in a popular way to share all these amazing photos? Knute, Skip, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, he wasn't a particularly charismatic personality. If you look at pictures of him, he looks like an accountant who's been sucking on a lemon. He was more, I think, more personable than that. But he was, a really strong advocate for various campaigns to promote the region, to promote the state. He was a conservationist in the kind of old sense of conservation, big advocate of Mount Rainier National Park. He was one of the original founders of the Mountaineers, the climbing group, outdoor group, which was very significant here, and then it still is in the Northwest. And but he had a falling out because he wanted to put all kinds of roads in Mount Rainier National Park, and the Mountaineers objected, and then he was not a big advocate of the size of Olympic National Park. He wanted that whittled down because he had this vision of wanting, let's preserve the beauty and these incredible things, but we need to, continue our resource economy. Don't throw the loggers out of business. And so, as time went on, he had some conflicts with people who had formerly been staunch allies.
Oh, this is amazing. Like, I didn't have that angle on him. I don't know what I'm thinking right now. Like, what is driving this guy to take so many photos all over the state? Not just one theme, but as you say, all sorts of photographs. Like, that alone is kind of an interesting thing. And yes, this is not rehearsed or whatever. At least I'm getting a chance to see these photos for the first time. So, Skip, you're right on the mark. Our viewers are going to have, you guys, that was not downtown Chelan. That was blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's Lakeside. That is
okay. Lakeside. Okay.
I can tell that that's Lakeside. So.
But does that mean downtown Chelan, or is Lakeside something else? Is that right down there at the head of the lake?
As you were driving down the hill into Chelan from Wenatchee, and you're turning the corner to see the lake. Yeah. And Captain Mike's is right over there, right?
Yeah.
That's where it is.
I was wondering that if that dock is where the dock is for the boat that goes to Stehekin is now. Is that in the general area there? Because that's before you get to.
Again, I could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But that's what it felt like to me. And I'm like, I know what this. I know where this is, and it's really fun to see places that you know and that you grew up with showing up in these very early images because it's like a slice in time, and you can just feel being in that moment. And I was excited to include a few from my neck of the woods growing up.
Well, and that's so true with my stuff, and I think Skip's stuff as well. Of course, there's a excitement on the other end if somebody goes, well, yeah, that's the ridge that I lost my Tupperware when we had that picnic that one time. Don't you remember? And any kind of visceral connection, then if you lay in the geology or you lay in some other narrative, they're automatically interested because that place is already part of their lives. It's like a relative, essentially. So that's how I see these old photos, whether I recognize it or not. If it's double exciting if I go, my God, I know exactly where he was standing with that glass plate. That's just amazing.
The Columbia River near Wenatchee.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't it amazing? I just love it. I really, really love this one as well. So again, this is the same trip. So very clearly, right, he's on a trip where he's gathering images together. But it's just a beautiful shot.
Well,
which direction he's looking here?
He did not say. Sadly, he very often, and I should mention, because Knute and I know this very well, but Asel Curtis left us handwritten note cards with every single shot, and he wrote where he was and what he was doing and the date most of the time. Not all the time. Sometimes he was dateless, but we can't fault him for that. So we actually have his own words about every single image that we are digitizing. So he did not say.
Yeah, that's amazing. My guess, Skip, is we're looking north, so downtown Wenatchee's on the left, and there's the kind of Pangborn Bar on the right side. But yeah, of course I could be wrong. But yeah, I'm deeply fascinated by that Columbia River in its former state, of course, but before the manipulation of the river, and to read accounts of Thomas Simons coming down the Columbia in 1881 in the fall, and he's got guides with him, and they're going through rapid after rapid, which no longer exists. I mean, that's just great stuff. So, man, if there's more of these photos of the Columbia, any stretch of the Columbia, I'm all eyes for sure. Thank you for selecting that one. Yeah. Oh boy.
This is a really great one. Again, all of these I think are wonderful, but this is a Mount Baker, one of the Mount Baker trips that he did. And of course you can see the subject matter and you can really look at what she's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
This is in July of 1908.
Huh. So Skip, I saw this photo recently, maybe this morning or yesterday afternoon. Now, why would I have seen that? Do I subscribe to some email newsletter of yours, perhaps, or was it Maggie, or putting up?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I haven't used this photo. I love it though.
We actually shared it on our social media last night.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where you all saw it, and we're featuring. If the viewers don't know, we're doing one Asel image, new image every week. Featuring on our social media, and then of course Knute is sharing through his channels as well. And for us, for the month of March, we're featuring women in his work because it's wonderful to have the range of women being shown doing things that maybe you don't think of a woman doing in that time period.
Yes. Maggie, before we forget it, which social media are we talking about, and what's the name of the channel or the account?
Yes, of course. So we are sharing these images on our Instagram page and our Facebook page. We actually have two accounts. We have an account for the Washington State Historical Society itself, and we also have an account for the Washington State History Museum because we are, of course, both things.
Yes.
So we have pages for both, and Washington History is where you can find us, and our marketing team is always doing a great job of putting out new material for everyone to see. And I particularly love that we get to share some new images every month with everyone.
Well, so this is a homestead at Twin Rivers, which is just was a. There was sort of a town there. I think we'll see an image of that. And there were homesteads there, and it's just south of the confluence of the Columbia and the Snake. So it's on the east side just south of Kennewick.
I see. Huh.
And
And
this is a homestead that was created there.
it's the Stiles family homestead, and he took this image in May of 1909. So again, you can kind of see where he was traveling.
Now, sorry.
No, it's okay. The image that you were speaking of, Knute, is next. So I can pop to that one if you would like.
Yeah, let's pop to that one. Show
Okay.
the context there.
Oh, wow.
Isn't this? So this is the community of Twin River. And you'd love that sand, right?
Good
That
God.
soil.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's got Tri-Cities written all over it. Holy cow.
Yeah. There you go, 1909. Apparently, the community was pretty much kaput by the 1920s, so it didn't last very long. But I was just fascinated by the fact that they tried to make a go of it and it didn't quite work out.
Well, I mean, I think, I've been deep into J. Harlan Brett stuff this past winter, and he's tromping around on foot and getting off of train stations here and there in Eastern Washington. And it's hard for me to remember how rough some of those places were. Like many of the communities that I know today, I think look like this. Quincy, for instance, I think Quincy in the 1920s is probably something similar to this. So, yeah, I mean, wow, what a shot. And I love the everyday nature of it too. Like, this is great. These are my favorites, I think. I love the geology themed photos, but I think this everyday life in Eastern Washington also really speaks to me specifically. So thank you for selecting this one. This is a great shot. Doing great, Maggie. This is a blast. Thank you. Oh wow, look at this.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, we are now moving into Mount Rainier, and we could not do this talk without doing at least one Mount Rainier image, because again, he spent so much time there. And this is, of course, some horse trips back. It was at the time called Indian Henry Trail at Mount Rainier,
Okay.
and it was taken in August of 1911. And one really fun continuity that we see in his work is in August every year, he's taking lots of these kind of mountain photos so we can see the change in time.
So Skip, he really liked the idea of not only preserving Mount Rainier's beauty, but getting as many people up there as possible by automobile. Was he big on that even before automobile, do you think?
Well, he was big on it early on. I can say that he was, he was a big promoter of roads and access. And Mount Rainier was the first national park to permit cars in 1908. Some drivers showed up in 1907 and were turned away.
No kidding.
Because the park and they complained. They said, well, there's nothing that says we can't be here with our horseless carriages. And the Park Service said, well, we're going to make rules and come back next year. And they didn't have the staff or the campgrounds or anything that they had. But Rainier was so close to Tacoma and Seattle.
Yeah. So are we guessing that he's taking what percentage of this 60,000 image collection is his own interest versus how much was he doing professionally and being invoiced essentially for his work? Any idea on that?
That's a really great question. And
it is a great question.
One that we're going to be able to explore as we have a better and full understanding of all the images that are here. Mm-hmm. He was really good about marking down when it was a project, who was paying him for it.
I see. Yeah.
So we will have a better understanding of that as the project continues.
Skip, I'm just kind of wondering now. I'm in the first decade or two of the 20th century. I'm living in Seattle. I'm getting newspapers every day. Were there staff photographers for those newspapers, and were they almost celebrities as far as being a major? Was that a main way to get your art to the masses? And if so, was Asahel part of that newspaper world at all?
Well, it's interesting because he was. I mean, he did photograph for the newspapers in certain stints, and in the collection you'll find there'll be something that says car accident. And Asahel will have run out with his camera and set it up, and there's a car that's overturned in a river or something. But in the early part of the 20th century, the photo reproduction was pretty bad, and so pictures were almost just kind of they were an extra thing that became very popular, but it took a while until newspapers could reproduce them in a way that made them, really compelling. Mm-hmm. So most of these guys had studios. Yeah. And Curtis was one. He had partners from time to time. So, I think the early photographers in the region just had to be generalists. It's like, no specialists. You just practiced. And I think, and Edward Curtis, in his studio days was taking pictures of, portraits of people in the studio and that kind of thing before he then went off to do his American Indian series that made him famous.
Maggie,
it also made him go bankrupt.
Oh, okay. I guess I did hear that from you. Yeah. Maggie, there's not an Edward Curtis collection at your joint as well, or is there?
No, there. I mean, most people who manage collections like I do have at least one of his folios because everyone thought they were very important when they were made. So a lot of collections have them. But no, it's just really unique to Asahel Curtis's story that we have every single image that he took. And it's because we worked with his studio and his family to acquire those after his death. So
unfortunately, Edward's years, his photography from the years he ran a studio in Seattle is almost entirely lost.
Really? There's no obvious reason why. Like, I'm just trying to think of this family, like these photos.
Oh, I think he had issues with family and whatnot, and I think at some point a bunch of his stuff got unloaded before it was considered valuable, that kind of thing. I don't really know the story about that, but I've seen one or two pictures from that period reproduced in old newspapers, and then tried to find the original, but you can't find them.
Oh, wow.
I would just add that when we did our episode on Asahel Curtis, I got people writing in saying, gee, we have some of his color slides in our garage. And these are lantern slides that were hand tinted that he made and sold commercially.
Oh.
And that was magic lanterns were the way you showed images at public meetings and that kind of thing. Yeah. We had people find Curtis prints in their family photo albums. And they asked us for information about them, and we passed them on or referred them to the Historical Society. And so it's just like this. It's like there's this incredible repository in Tacoma, but everybody has a chance to kind of help open the treasure chest.
Yes. And contribute to it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. It's very exciting.
Sunrise from Maryhill.
Oh, wow. Sunrise. No kidding.
Oh.
And we were just talking about Maryhill, and we were just talking about the Columbia River. I'm going to go get the date for you all while you start to discuss.
Yeah. Well, are we on the Oregon side if this is sunrise, or are we sunset and we're looking downriver? That's my first question. Is that a boat down there? A little skiff? All right.
Yeah, I can't tell.
Huh.
Well, it was taken in October of 1915, and I can tell you for sure it was sunrise. He was very clear about that. Okay. He does not give any additional information. It's just he titled it Sunrise at Mary.
Um,
Well, it'll be interesting. Somebody's going to find this shot today,
yes,
and we can
yes.
pair them up.
No, Maggie's going to go to the live shot right now. If she's got a live camera from that riverbank, we're going to. Oh, just kidding. All right.
I'm magic. I can do all of the things. I can do all of the things.
This is the one near Rock Lake.
It is. It's called Palisades, near Rock Lake, and it was in September of 1911.
Mm,
So we're kind of south of Sprague,
yeah, yeah. This is
down.
the Spokane high school teachers, the science teachers, who it's starting to look like they were major players in helping Bretts get this idea of ice age floods, would regularly take their high school students down to Rock Lake on kind of a day trip, whether it was by rail. Must have been by rail, I guess, if it's 1911. But yeah, Rock Lake is an important site for this ice age flood theory that was just starting to become in vogue about a decade later. But yeah, the detail here, we have train aficionados who know exactly what line that is, and when they built the tracks and that sort of thing. And I've never been quite that into it, but those are Columbia River basalt lavas for sure. The same, they look about the same today. Those rather raw looking rock layers that extruded 16 million years ago. That's a nice shot. Thank you. Okay.
Where are we?
We are at the headlands at Wallula. Did I say that correctly?
Oh, okay.
Yes. Well, I guess we're both right, to be honest. So, yes, the Columbia River goes through Wallula Gap. This is down by the Tri-Cities, not far from that Two Rivers. Is that what you called it, Nick?
Yeah.
But the Ice Age floods did come through. Back then it was called Wallula Gateway, where these big Ice Age floods had just come to a screeching halt. And so if we're just downstream of Wallula Gateway, there's a kind of a Twin Sisters kind of a place, but I don't think those spires are there. They might be, though. Yeah, great shot before the dams. Wow, he did get around.
Well, and he did, and I'm really excited to be able to show you more of these as we digitize them, right? I think there's more in this series. So as Skip and I talk a lot about how we're going to have a really great picture of projects like the Denny Regrade after all of the images are digitized. I feel like we're going to have the same thing for the Columbia River in sections that Curtis photographed. And so just making sure we highlighted some of those for you to whet your appetite, to keep thinking about the project and what we're doing is why we chose some of them for you today.
Terrific. Oh, my goodness.
Well, and this is the one image that we have already digitized. So you can actually find this image on our website, but Knute had asked that we include it. Again, just really, really lovely image. This is, well, Skip, do you want to talk to everybody about where it's at?
Well, that's Steamboat Rock.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is, surrounded by a lake.
It is.
But this, it looks like a cattle drive.
It is. Maggie, can we push in on this one a little bit? This is
definitely can.
Yeah,
this is a cattle drive.
Outstanding. Yeah. Wow.
Well, and go ahead.
No, I saw this image. Maggie showed it at a presentation that we did. It just blew me away. I've been there. A lot of people have been there, but I had never really envisioned what it looked like pre-dam.
Yeah.
And and there it is. And then after our presentation, somebody took this and paired it with a current photo of it that just made a beautiful contrast.
Well, it really is. And I think the surprise that I have about this for you, Skip, is that I looked. We haven't gotten to these ones yet. We have 12 more. That I know you're going to be really excited to see. And I think this region of Washington, I noticed this photo right away when I started working at the Historical Society because my family would have been running cattle as well.
Mhm.
Like we were orchardists and we have cattle and we have wheat farms. And this type of work is something that you see throughout his body of work that I think a lot of people like me who have family who did, you can really relate to it. And it's just a visually stunning image as well.
I think if you look in that dust cloud over on the kind of left there, you can see a cowboy on a horse.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that until we blew it up here. That is awesome. Now, Nick, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Before Grand Coulee and Banks Lake, but water ran through here at some point, right? Was that a Missoula flood or a Lake Columbia flood, or do we know what? There was water here before there was sagebrush country.
Well, yes, this is a great example historically of kind of a lost world. Yes, this landscape we're looking at is under a reservoir now, Banks Lake, but we're looking at the floor of the upper Grand Coulee, and and carving the Grand Coulee and creating that level of that floor is a direct result of these Ice Age floods. Now,
the Ice Age floods.
Yeah, so currently I'm hot on this idea that it's water directly from underneath the Canadian ice sheet pouring down the upper Grand Coulee as opposed to Missoula floodwater, but that most geologists don't agree with me on that. I'm just going back to the Brett's work. But regardless, it's a key question because, now I'm going to get excited about geology for just a second, but the timing of when this portion, right around Steamboat Rock, the timing of when you kind of get the floor of Grand Coulee to this precise level where these cattle are is important because once you get this floor down to that elevation, that's far lower than the other places where the Missoula floods traveled. And so if you bring in a batch of Montana water and this floor is already as low as it is right here, the water is going to come down over where the cattle are, and it's not going to go into these other channels that are well known in eastern Washington. So even today, we're struggling with the timing of when was the floor of Grand Coulee carved down to this level, because when it gets down this low, this is the siphon for all the glacial Lake Columbia and other things as well. So this is a very important photo for that reason as well, just to see that lost world. And I think this is the old Caribou Trail. That's a whole nother angle on this. I've never done much with the Caribou Trail, but I think it was a common place to run cattle up the Grand Coulee from White Bluffs area up to the Okanagan. So, yeah. It
very much was. And my family was part of that. And it's just really fun to see. It's fun to see all of that come together in a project I get to work on, so many years later.
Now that is so. Thank you, Nick, for that, and Maggie. I love your personal connection here.
I actually love that you can see that we're in a big patch of University of Washington photos that were taken on May 10th, 1914. You can also see that Curtis was taking them with his partner Miller at the time. You can see that that's a glass plate, what size, who's digitizing it when, if it's anywhere else. I also really loved that there were some YMCA children on a roof. That can mean anything, but I think those are the things that Knute and I look for when we're in the collection together, because there's a story there for sure. But you can see, like, this is our workflow, and we are in it right now. It looks like we also are in some Port Angeles. And I can also go down to the very end. Lane just left for the day. She lives on Anderson Island and has to get the ferry home. But the last thing that she scanned today is a Port Angeles shot of Tucker Yard at Earl's Mill that was also taken on May 14th in 1914 as well. So
thank you.
You can see what we're doing as we're doing it.
So this is a daily thing. How many staff people do you have doing this kind of work, and how many more months or more do you have to get through the more than 50,000 images?
Yes, we usually have 2 to 3 people working on this every day. Sometimes it's a little less than that. We usually get through about 100 images a day. It's very specialized scanning, so it takes a really long time. But we're just really excited to be working through this, to be able to share with our public and our visitors, and we're just really thrilled to get to be doing the project.
And is there a portion of these that someone can go to a website right now and page through on the website, or how would they go about finding some of these images that are already available to the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can go to our website, which is washingtonhistory.org, and go to our collection search, and everything that has already been digitized, those 5,000 images that we talked about at the beginning, are available for people to search and see and request and license and use. And we're in the process of figuring out when we're going to be doing the next release, which is why we're excited to be partnering with Skip to make sure that he has kind of great first access, and it's lovely to be able to do something similar for you, Nick, and your audience, because these are the ways we get the word out about the project. It is funded through not only granting organizations, but also just members of the public. We've had support from across the country, and we're just really thankful for that. And so if anyone would like to donate, you can also go to our website and contribute that way as well. Every penny that we raise goes to, as of right now, paying someone to scan them, which is the support we need right now.
So those donations would go specifically to this project, or just generally for scanning photos?
Specifically for this particular project. We have a very specific project set up, and if you go to our website, you can learn more about the Asahel Curtis project at the Washington State Historical Society.
Great. And it sounds like you're going chronologically. Did I hear that correctly? So you're not like going through the whole thing like Skip says, hey, man, I need Denny Hill stuff. Like, get it to me now. I want to do a new episode. It doesn't work like that, or does it?
It doesn't generally work like that. They're actually stored by size and by type.
Okay.
So it's chronological, but it's by size and type. And so right now we have one person digitizing nitrate negatives, and others digitizing the glass plate negatives. And yes, Skip said to me, hi, I would really, really like to feature this in the documentary we're working on.
So we produce the Mossback Den, which is my weekly newsletter. And once a month, I feature a new scan, and I research it and bring whatever I can to tell people about it. Yeah. Maggie mentioned that we're making a documentary about the Asahel Curtis project, not just about Asahel Curtis, but about what the museum is doing and how it relates to people, which I think is a really important component, the way people see themselves and their families in these images, and what we learn through that process. So, and then I do have an idea of an episode for the fall season of Mossback that relates to some images on a theme that I've seen. So there'll be more coming up. I have just one brief thing.
Good.
And that is that there was a good and quite interesting biography of Asahel Curtis that was published by WSU Press some years ago. William Wilson's. It's called Developing the Pacific Northwest: The Life and Works of Asahel Curtis.
Oh, wow.
And he really goes into, this is not a Hollywood tell-all type of book. It's really about Asahel Curtis's impact and what he did in terms of promotion and volunteer work and advocacy and whatnot for the wilderness and for the region in general. Anyway, it's really good. If you want to know anything about Asahel Curtis, that's the source to go to.
Thanks for the tip. I didn't know about that, Buck. I'm going to get that. That looks great. Maggie, any last words from you?
I just wanted to thank you for having us today. I feel like I say us because it's me and the photographs, and it's really the photographs, right? Like everyone wants to see the photographs. I just introduce them, and I'm happy to do so for this really meaningful project that we get to do here at the Washington State Historical Society. So really thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks to both of you for being here. Hang on the line for just a second. I'll just stop the recording and we'll talk for a couple more minutes. So thanks to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.